He showed up with a camera, but it wasn't the lens he was using to spy. It all started like any other ordinary day in Ouagadougou. The sun was high in the sky, and the streets buzzed with life. President Ibrahim Traoré had just come from a meeting with student leaders. He was smiling, walking through the crowds without a bulletproof vest, children around him, chanting, "Faso, Faso." But there was someone else watching from the side, a man dressed in local fabric, sporting sunglasses and carrying a Canon camera. His press badge read Paul Levra, a French investigative journalist. He claimed to be working for a European news agency. He spoke soft French and occasionally threw in a word or two of Dula, making him seem like just another outsider trying to capture the story of Burkina Faso. He was kind, complimenting people, tipping generously, and telling taxi drivers how much he loved the country. Even filmed interviews with youth organizers talking about Pan-African unity. People didn't think much of him, just another foreigner documenting his travels. But Paul Lever was no ordinary journalist. At the same time, a 28-year-old intelligence officer, Corporal Awa Diallo, was working the night shift at a military cyber unit near Koudigou. Awa was known for her keen eyes and quiet demeanor. That night she noticed something odd, a small encrypted signal coming from a local Wi-Fi network. It appeared to be a routine data sync, but the destination was Abidjan, not Paris. Awa decided to investigate. She traced the IP address to a guest house in Ouaga, room 17, under the name Paul Levra. She didn't panic. Instead, she gathered her things, grabbed a flash drive, and casually told her unit, "I'm going for tea." An hour later, Awa sat at a cafe just across the street from the guest house. She saw Levra come out casually, chatting with the staff as if he was a regular. He walked a short distance to a coffee shop near the French Cultural Center, where he met a tall man with an Ivorian diplomatic pin. The exchange between them was quick. No pleasantries. Paul handed over a small flash drive wrapped inside a folded napkin. Awa snapped a picture of the handoff, her heart racing. She immediately texted her team. "White Bird just passed a package, possible link to Abidjan. I'm following." The next morning, Awa sent the footage to President Traoré. He watched it in silence. There was no need for words. He understood the gravity of what this meant. It wasn't just a French journalist gathering footage. This was something far more dangerous, something bigger. The French weren't just watching. They were making moves. Later that night, Aula took matters into her own hands. She snuck into Levra's room while he was out. Tucked inside his camera lens, she found a microchip filled with satellite images of Burkina Faso military bases, fuel depots, and communication towers. Aula's breath caught in her throat. "This is war," she muttered quietly to herself. He had introduced himself as Paul, but her investigation revealed a much different name. It was clear now, Levra was not who he claimed to be. Back at the presidential compound, alarms were going off. Not the kind of alarms you hear in a movie, but the quiet, methodical kind. Calls, encrypted messages, secure networks lighting up with red flags. The images Awa had uncovered weren't just random satellite images. These were high-resolution maps and coordinates, notes scribbled in French. Com tower vulnerability at 38%. Patrol delay at 2 o'clock. Aymen Awa's heart sank. This wasn't journalism. This was surveillance, sabotage, reconnaissance. When they ran Levra's name through their intelligence network, there was nothing. No prior records. So they dug deeper, reaching out to retired agents and quiet contacts across the region. That's when they uncovered the truth. His real name was Jean-Paul Roussel, a former top agent of France's Foreign Intelligence Service, the DGSE. He had been one of France's most trusted field agents during the Sahel Wars. Officially, he was retired, but his mission was far from over. His real job, to destabilize Pan-African governments from the inside. His latest target, Burkina Faso. And his handler? A senior political advisor to President Alassane Ouattara of Ivory Coast. The next day, France's ambassador made a call to Burkina Faso's foreign minister. His tone was calm, diplomatic. "He's just a journalist, maybe a bit too curious, but he needs to be released. It's a matter of diplomacy." Then came another call from the Ivorian ambassador, echoing the same sentiments. "Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast are brothers. No conflict. Releasing him will keep things peaceful." But President Traoré wasn't swayed. He wasn't intimidated by these subtle threats. He uttered 6 words that would resonate across the region. "Faso is not a French playground." At 2:47 a.m., a black, unmarked convoy arrived at Levroy's guest house. No noise, no commotion, just a group of highly trained agents, silent, focused, efficient. Jean-Paul Roussel was arrested without a single shot fired. When they brought him into the underground holding cell, he had a smirk on his face. "I've been in African prisons before. You won't hold me for long," he said. But President Traoré wasn't interested in rushing things. This time, he was going to win the war with truth, not just bullets. During Rousel's search, a burner phone was found hidden in his boot. It only contained one message: "Activate sleeper cell." Awa stared at the screen, her mind racing. Someone else is already inside, she thought. Rousel was just the match to ignite a fire that had already been set. In the cold, dim interrogation room, President Traoré remained silent in the corner, watching as Jean-Paul Roussel sat confidently across from him, handcuffed and covered in dried blood. He wasn't afraid. He was too comfortable. Across the table, Corporal Awa placed the burner phone on the desk. The phone's message had come from an encrypted Ivorian diplomatic line, which had been routed through French servers. Traoré leaned forward, his voice quiet but firm. "How many more are here?" Raoul chuckled, his blue eyes gleaming with arrogance. "Enough to make your next speech your last." 2 hours later, an alert came in from Za Dam, Burkina Faso's largest water reservoir near Ouagadougou. Guards had seen 2 men with forged military IDs attempting to access the control room. They fled when challenged, but left behind a plastic toolkit. Inside, there were wires, detonators, and a French-manufactured microtrigger. The sleeper cell wasn't just a bluff. It was real. And they weren't just targeting the president. They were aiming to collapse the state itself. Traoré immediately ordered a lockdown of all critical infrastructure. Military engineers were deployed, and civilian volunteers were called in to help secure the city. Ouagadougou turned into a fortress overnight. But the deeper problem was that someone inside the presidential circle was leaking information. Claire called a private meeting with 5 of his most trusted officers. They entered the war room, swore loyalty, and pledged to fight alongside him. But Awa, always observant, noticed something odd. Colonel Mamadou Sangaré, the president's logistics chief, had scratches on his wrist, burn marks as if from handling explosives. She didn't speak up immediately, but later she followed him. That night, from a rooftop near a half-finished government warehouse, Awa observed Colonel Sangaré meeting a civilian in a tailored coat with a French accent. She recorded their exchange. Sangaré said 5 words: "The boy will not last." When Traoré saw the footage, his face grew cold. He had once trusted Sangaré like an uncle. Now, that same uncle was working with those trying to destroy his country. But Traoré didn't act out of anger. He set a trap. He leaked fake coordinates for a fuel shipment, making sure Sangaré would see them. Later that night, a bomb was planted on a decoy convoy, empty trucks with fake trackers. Sangaré was arrested with explosives hidden in his office drawer. When confronted, he didn't deny it. "Our promised us stability. You will bring war," he whispered. Just as President Traoré thought the worst was behind him, another alert came in. The man assigned to guard his sleeping quarters, Private Doumbia, had gone missing during his shift. In his locker they found a disturbing clue, a photo of Traoré, marked with a red X. Awa stared at it, her voice barely a whisper. "The next attempt won't be on the Dam. It'll be on you." The quiet that had fallen over the compound was ominous. Inside, the presidential headquarters felt still, almost suffocating. Ouagadougou was dark, tense, and everyone knew something was off, but no one dared to speak it aloud. It was the kind of silence that hangs in the air before a storm breaks. Traoré hadn't slept in 36 hours. Below, Awa was reviewing every camera feed, every movement, every entry and exit. Yet one detail still haunted her. Private Doumbia, the man entrusted to guard the president's room, had vanished without a trace. No leave form, no note, nothing. Just the photo with the red X. Awa radioed her commander. Double security on the president's quarters. Everyone checked. Everyone stripped. Meanwhile, Traoré sat alone, not fearful, but seething with quiet anger. He wasn't angry because they were trying to kill him. He was angry because they thought it would be easy. Because they still believed Burkina Faso was a puppet on a foreign string. For too long, they'd tried to bribe officials, flip allegiances, and destabilize countries in the dark. But not this time. At 3:09 a.m., the attempt came. A flashbang exploded into the West Wing. followed by the sound of armed men in stolen military uniforms storming the hallways. They quickly disabled the surveillance system with French-made EMP grenades. They moved quickly and professionally, communicating with hand signals. One of them, the tallest, moved with the precision of a soldier. His codename Cora Rouge flashed across the burner phone of his partner. The mission was simple: kill the president, leave no survivors, create chaos, and make it look like Burkina Faso had collapsed from within. But Awa had seen the warning signs. She'd anticipated this move. She had relocated Traoré's sleeping quarters just hours earlier. When the assassins burst into the room, it was empty, a trap. The lights exploded, followed by gunfire. Awa and the Black Unit, an elite group of soldiers loyal only to Traoré, opened fire from above. One of the attackers was shot while trying to retreat, while another blew himself up with a vest, killing only himself. But Cora Rouge managed to escape, shooting his way through the south wing, jumping over the outer wall, and disappearing into the darkness. The only thing left behind was his rifle and a patch on his jacket, a hand-stitched Ivorian eagle. When Traoré saw the patch, he said nothing for a full minute. Then, finally, he turned to Awa and spoke quietly. "They are not sending spies anymore. They're sending soldiers." By dawn, the capital was on high alert. Rumors flew. People whispered in the markets, taxis, mosques. They had heard the explosions. They had seen the smoke. But then, in an unexpected move, Traoré walked into the heart of the city. No motorcade, no armored car, just him walking on foot with 2 guards behind him, the Burkina Faso flag draped over his shoulder. He walked straight into the central market, where women were frying beignets and children watched with wide eyes, and he spoke to them. "They came last night. They tried. They failed. I'm still here, and so is Faso." The video, filmed by a teenager with an old smartphone, went viral. By noon, it had spread across the country, even reaching Paris. But the response wasn't just online. People started taking action. Motorbike riders volunteered to carry secure messages across the city. Mechanics offered to repair damaged military vehicles for free. Youth groups in Bobo Dioulasso began organizing street patrols to prevent further infiltration. The people were becoming soldiers, not with guns, but with purpose. Awa continued her search for Cora Rouge, tracking him across the city. He moved like a ghost, but she knew what to look for. 3 days later, she found him, hiding in a French-owned warehouse district near the old embassy zone, disguised as a water vendor with his weapon hidden in a bucket of scrap metal. When he saw her, he didn't fight. He just smiled. "You've already lost," he said as she cuffed him. Back at the compound, Cora Rouge was interrogated. What he revealed sent shock waves through the room. He wasn't working alone. He was just one part of a much larger plan. 5 foreign agents, each with a specific target: the water supply, the power grid, military communication towers, the gold reserves, and the president. A synchronized effort to collapse the nation from within. Awa stepped out of the room, cold sweat on her forehead. She had to tell Traoré, but when she reached his office, the door was wide open. He was gone. On his desk, she found a handwritten note. "I'm going to the gold reserve. If that falls, Faso falls." The sun was rising over Ouagadougou, but inside the intelligence headquarters, the air was thick with tension. Awa read the note again, trying to process the weight of it. He's gone to the gold reserve, she thought, the heart of the nation's wealth. In the end, Burkina Faso stood resilient against those trying to tear it apart. President Traoré's defiance became a symbol of strength, and the people showed that no foreign power could control their fate. Faso's spirit remains unbreakable, and its future is theirs to shape. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more.